Oftentimes when I need to create an image for a course, I just simply go into PowerPoint and then use their shapes. So you're probably all familiar with this. You can create some, there's several different types of shapes. Sometimes you can play with them by grabbing the little yellow square on arrows or things like that. So this I can make it a little more round or less round, hard edges. So just simple things like that. And you're probably already familiar with how to change the color. You can pick these. What you may not be as familiar with is right here. I can go um, to this color wheel and I can kind of change anything. You're probably familiar with that. But one nice thing is this little dropper here, or sometimes it's a magnifying glass. And then what that lets me do is I can pick any color I want. So let's say I want it to match that color on the eraser. Just click on that and it copies it, hit OK, and it's the same color. So that's really nice if you search color schemes online and you want it to match exactly to those color schemes. You can do the same thing with the line on the shape. You can also make the lines really thick if you want to, or you can just get rid of the lines altogether by doing no lines or no outline, right? The other thing that I want to show you is, let's say I want there to be some overlap here. I want you to kind of see through this. What I've been playing with is if I increase the transparency, it kind of goes all white for some reason, which is kind of surprising to me. But here's a solution that I kind of found, is if I went up here under fill shape, then I could go to more fill colors, and then I could change, make it less opaque that way. Hit OK, and then you can kind of see that it's a little see-through, right? Which can be helpful for various reasons. So just using that simple, those simple features, I've created images like this. These aren't complex images, but they're very simple, and they're teaching kind of a process or a flow or something like that. The other thing that I've done is I've created icons like this. So for instance, with this, I just created a box, and then I drew lines to create the pencil and the clock and the heart. So that was pretty easy, and you can make any box into a text box just by clicking text, and then you can type in it if you want, and then you can actually change where that text is. So if I want it at the bottom, I can do that. Pretty easy. You can change the text color. So this is pretty simple stuff, right? And the icons are pretty simple. I just drew the lines there. These were a little more complex, but in some ways they were easier to create. So what I did is I found images online. Let me show you. So I did an image search, and let's say, I really like this image. And notice that this is free to use. I've changed the tools so that I can label for use with modifications. So I can use this. I'm going to go to visit page just so you can see that this is public domain. I don't have to use any attribution for this. So that's really nice. I can use this, I can modify it, and I don't have to cite anybody. So that's really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the image. And then what I do is I'm going to bring it in here, and I actually want to get rid of the black background. So let's say I want to do that. So what I'm going to do is double click the image, and then I see some other options here. So I can remove background, and you can see that it didn't quite do exactly what I wanted it to do, because anything that's in pink is what they're going to remove, and so they've kept North America, but they've gotten rid of some of these other things. So I'm just going to click on them, and it'll come out. Sometimes this is really working well. Sometimes it doesn't work this well. And sometimes you have to draw a line through it, and you have to draw multiple lines to get something that you like. But okay, so I'm just going to save that. Click off. And you'll also see that there are some spots here that I want to get rid of. So I'm going to go back to remove background, and then now I see that I need to get rid of those little spots and make those black dots pink so that they're removed. So it can take a little bit of time, but for the sake of this video, let's just pretend I got rid of all those. And now all I'm going to do is just grab a oops, I'm going to go to home. I'm just going to create a shape right here. Now I want this world to kind of go up in front, so I'm going to control click or right click. And then I'm just going to reorder objects. And this will look different depending on what you're using, but I'm just going to bring that back, hit enter. And now you see that I have a world over there like that, and it looks pretty nice, right? So essentially I did this with one that maybe you've seen on personalized learning. A lot of times we talk about the different elements of personalized learning. And so I created that image just how I showed you. The other thing that I've done is these other images I've just found free images that I can use and modify, and then I remove the background. Now sometimes they're black, the images are black, and I wanted to change them to color image. And so all I do is, let me show you. So let me pull up an example. Okay, here's an example. So let's say I want to use this, but I don't want it to be bluish, that bluish color. So I'm going to just view image, copy image, and now let's bring in my, okay, so let's say I really want this white, so I'm just going to double click it. And now you see I can change the color. And I'm sure there's a better way of doing this, but if I don't see white right away, like I'm not seeing white, what I'll do is I'll get it as light as I can, and then I'll save as picture on my desktop. And then what I'll do is I'll just delete it and import that the lighter picture. So bring in that new picture, and then if I go into change color, there's normally like a white option. So that's pretty simple to do. Maybe there's an easier way to do it than how I do it, but there's an extra step, but it seems to work. So that's how I've created all of these. Sometimes I've combined images or I've augmented what I found. But it's really not that difficult at all to do. The hardest part is actually finding the image that you want to modify that's free. So another thing that I've done is I've used the shapes to kind of create very simple representations of things like people. So I've created these kind of peg people here. And you'll see I've changed all the colors on this so that you can see how it looks, how I created all of these images. And then what I did is I just held down the Shift key, clicked them all, and then right-clicked or control-clicked on a Mac, and I hit group, or now I can ungroup it if I want to. But they're just all different images. But when they're combined, they look nice. I've changed all the images, or the color of the images, so that it flows, and I removed the lines on them as well. So it just looks like one shape. So pretty simple to do, actually. And then what I've done is I've taken screenshots of those, and then I've adjusted the size and put it in there. So to take a screenshot in a Mac, it's Control-Shift-4, and then you can kind of select the area that you want to do it. On a PC, I think you have to hit Print Screen and then paste it into a slide, and then you can crop the images. And cropping images as well is really easy. If like here's an image, if I just double-click it, there's normally an option somewhere for cropping, and so I can change how I want that to be cropped. And I can always go back to the original. It doesn't actually delete that part of it. It just hides it, so I can always go back to that part. So I've used that and then resize it, because if you keep them grouped and then you just try to resize it, it always gets kind of funky. You can see that that's not what I wanted. But if I take a screenshot of it, then it's an image that I can adjust really easily, and I can change the size. So that's one that I created. Another thing that I created was this image. I created schools just by this is a triangle. You'll notice that right here I've actually just added a white box to kind of hide that area, but That's basically what it looks like, and I've hidden those lines that I don't want using um, lines, white lines, kind of as whiteout or rectangles or whatever, so that it looks kind of what I'm looking for. Now, when I copied this over, it kind of changed the formatting slightly, so um, it's cutting off some of the lines that I don't want it to. But again, that's kind of another really easy thing to do, and I'm always kind of amazed by some of the reactions that I get with this. Like, for instance, this image I've given it in presentations, and people have emailed me. They almost never ask to see my paper, but sometimes they'll ask for the images and if they can use it, and I always freely give it. Um, or or for instance, I used this one in a presentation and someone tweeted it out. So these simple visual representations can be quite powerful, and they kind of uh, teach people to remember the different attributes of something or the process. Also, there's in here there is kind of smart art that you can use. I think for this assignment, I wouldn't allow just a smart art as your image. I want you to go a little beyond that, but you can definitely use some of that. So, for instance, I know earlier in the course I created an image to kind of show a process like this. I made sure the colors looked nice, and then I added a cupcake at the end, and I added labels and things like that. That's probably okay. That's kind of pushing a little bit. I want you to reach a little beyond that when you're creating images. And you don't have to use PowerPoint, obviously. There's lots of different tools out there that you can use. But a lot of people don't really think of PowerPoint as a place, kind of a canvas to create images. So I wanted to show you some of the things that are possible in a tool that you're already familiar with. So hopefully this was helpful, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.